Hi everyone, this is Scott Spratt from Football Outsiders. I'm going to walk you through an example to demonstrate how you can use Football Outsiders' new Kubiak web application to create custom rankings and auction values to prepare for your fantasy drafts. For anyone unfamiliar, Kubiak is the name of Football Outsiders' full season fantasy projections. They include projections for individual player stats like yards and touchdowns, like you would find in other projection sets, but they distinguish themselves from other systems thanks to Football Analytics pioneer Aaron Schatz and Football Outsiders' advanced metrics that improve their accuracy. In addition, Kubiak accounts for important factors like projected team quality, player roles, and fantasy playoff schedules. From Football Outsiders' main page, you can reach the Kubiak web app by hovering over products and selecting Kubiak preseason projections. If you don't have a Football Outsiders account, are logged onto your account, or your account is not already subscribed to Kubiak, that drop-down link will send you to a page that details the Kubiak product, offers a demo using projection data from a previous season, and lets you subscribe to the service. You can subscribe to Kubiak on its own or subscribe to it as part of the gold, silver, or bronze packages that also include other Football Outsiders content like the Almanac PDF, weekly fantasy projections, and NFL charting data. Signing up for a Football Outsiders account, subscribing to Kubiak, or any other subscription option is a breeze. Check out the store page for more information. Since I've already logged into my account which subscribes to Kubiak, I go straight to the Kubiak projections based on a default league. That may be all you need to do if you play in a typical PPR format, but my leagues always have a few non-standard rules. So I'm going to go ahead and customize Kubiak for my specific league by clicking on the drop-down that shows my first league and selecting Create New. I play in a lot of leagues, and the league title input form lets you name each league profile you create for Kubiak. For now, I'm going to prepare for a league I play with a bunch of my college buddies, so I'll name the league profile UNC. This league has an auction draft with 12 participants, and my buddies tend to be a little bit more aggressive in going after the top players, so I'll go ahead and ramp up the aggressiveness one bar so the specifics of the league are captured by the calculated prices. First the 200 budget, and then the bump up of one aggressive spot. My league is pretty standard in terms of starting lineups, with 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 kicker, and 1 team defense. But we actually use 2 quarterbacks, so I'll bump that up there. I'm not going to group tight ends and wide receivers together, and the rest of that plays out the way that we do. We don't use individual defensive players in our league, but if you do, you can customize it here. And then under the bench details, I have 6 bench spots in my league here, not 4. So I'll bump that up there. And that sets up for my rosters. So I'll go ahead and scroll back to the top and head over to the scoring tab. In terms of scoring, our league is pretty close to a typical PPR format. We don't give points for attempts or completions of any kind, and rushing and receiving yards are the standard 1 point per 10 yards. However, we actually award a point for passing yards for every 25, not 20 yards. So I'll bump that one up here. And then down under receiving, you'll note that there are separate input boxes for receptions for wide receiver, tight end, and running back. So if you want to give different points to those different positions based on their receptions, you can. Our league is just a standard PPR format, so I'll leave those all as just being 1. Meanwhile, under miscellaneous, our league doesn't reward any points for kick or punt return yardage, so I'll leave those as the default 0 per 1 yards each. Scrolling down, you can change scoring for kickers and defenses too. Our league is standard here, with kickers getting more points for the farther they make their field goals, and for defenses getting points mostly for stats like sacks and interceptions, plus a few more when they hold opponents to low point totals. Had I selected individual defensive players, their scoring would be customizable on this page too, but since I didn't, those options are hidden. And so with that, I'm ready to scroll back up and head over to the Preferences tab. A lot of options here let you do sophisticated customization to account for factors like risk and matchups in the fantasy playoffs. If you hover over any of the question marks, you'll get additional information about what each of these options provides. I'm going to leave all of those as the default selections, and that's a good thing to do if you're comfortable relying on Football Outsiders' standard assumptions for how the projection calculation should work for most leagues. And with all those default things selected, I'm finished preparing the customization for my league, so I'll go ahead to the upper right and hit Save. And that's going to send me over to the draft board where it'll display the Kubiak projections for my specific league. There are actually a lot of things you can do on the draft board. By default, you'll see every player for every position all together, and the most important columns for playing fantasy. That includes things like the player's position, his bye week, and his risk factor. It includes his Kubiak projected fantasy points based on your custom league rules and corresponding overall and positional rankings and recommended auction prices. But it also includes his average draft position, or ADP, in both ESPN and Yahoo leagues. If you want to look at each position separately, you can click on the drop-down that says Show All Positions. So I'll jump down to quarterbacks here as a demonstration. Over on the right, you see every quarterback's recommended auction price, and if you scroll down, you'll notice that there are actually 29 quarterbacks getting a projected auction price. That's not typical, but again, it's customized for my league where I have 2 quarterbacks starting for all 12 teams in the league. So you'll see those customizations specific for your league there. Scrolling back to the top, I can toggle the View Summary tab. And that's going to show additional columns that include projected Kubiak stats, like rushing yards and receiving yards. Each position has its own set of columns here, so you'll need to select them individually. Users who want to take this expanded data to the next level with their custom displays and calculations will likely want to download these projections to CSV files. Or you can simply print a summary to use that as a cheat sheet for your draft. I'll go back to the summary view, because I'll just also mention that the Kubiak projections aren't the full of the web app. It's actually an amazing tool to use during your drafts because it allows you to select players as they are drafted, input their sales prices if you will play in an auction format, and then the Kubiak recommended auction prices will update for every other player in real time. So for my league, let's say that a Giants fan snags Saquon Barkley for the first auction player, and he pays $100 for him. That's more than Kubiak indicates as his projected value. I can mark him as drafted, this checkbox here, input his draft price of $100, and then you'll notice that every other player updates to account for the extra money that came off the board when Barkley was drafted for a premium. In addition, there's a second checkbox that you can mark to indicate a player was drafted to your own fantasy team, and then that'll add him to your team manager page. I'll go ahead and show that here with Christian McCaffrey. I'll select him as drafted, selected to my own team, and draft him for $70. I'll scroll up to the top where the team manager is. I can click there, and now that I've selected McCaffrey as being drafted by my own team, he ends up over there. When I jump between team manager and the draft board and back, you'll notice that all of the inputs that you make here get maintained for the whole time. And that's true whether you move to different positions or whatever changes you make to the viewing of the draft board or their team manager. That's great because it makes it easy to use the Kubiak web tool for a lot of things, including adding keepers if you play in a keeper league. For that, you can just go ahead and select every kept player as being drafted before the draft even happens, input their keeper prices if they play in an auction league, and you can end up with a draft cheat sheet and rankings and auction prices updated for the specifics of your keeper league. Okay, this demonstration should get you started with Kubiak for your own leagues. Remember, you can always edit your saved league profiles by clicking on League Settings and adding new league profiles from the league dropdown. Enjoy the new Kubiak web app, and good luck to you with your fantasy football seasons.